the joint sector has decided, to go on strike.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me to your studio.
Welcome.
And to actually enlighten our listener on the reason why JOHESU is actually going on strike. Just like what you rightly said, that in 2017, JOHESU actually threatened to go on strike. In 2019, we also threatened. Actually, it's not just an ordinary threatening, because in the health sector, we all work as a team. We have the doctors who are on commerce and the JOHESU joint health sector, who is actually comprises of all the health practitioners in the health sector. In 2009 precisely, the JOHESU went in an agreement with federal government that at every point in time, any adjustment needs to be done for the comments, which are the doctors. JOHESU workers will also be treated fairly. So in 2014, their comments adjustments was adjusted. That was the first time. Then in 2019, thereabouts, or 2017, it was adjusted the second time. Now last week precisely, they also went on warning strike for 5 days. They have agreed to adjust it for the third time. Of course, as we all know, that where you are a parent and you have children born of the same parent and they are not being treated fairly, equally, the other children are going to actually react, and it will affect the child psychologically. We've been in the same health sector, all the while that comments being the doctors, they've been adjusting their own. They've not adjusted for JOHESU. This time around, JOHESU said, no, we want fair judgment, fair treatment, that our comments adjustments should be adjusted. The committee the federal government has actually set, championed by Federal Ministry of Health and Labour and Productivity. They finished every arrangement. It was just kept aside. And the JOHESU National felt it is not a fair treatment for us in the health sector. That's why we decide to show our grievances by shutting down the system, where either the outgoing government will do the needful. These comments adjustments already has been put in the budget already.
Okay.
So we felt if it is put in the budget, let it be implemented. Let the necessary authority do the needful, either as they are winding up these governments or as a new government is coming. But what we want to be treated fairly, as our counterparts, the doctors, are also being treated.
All right. If you're listening, you're tuned to 92.3 Nigeria Info, and this is Hard Facts. I am Kalada Kurubatabo. You can call me Kalada. And we are talking with the chairperson, JOHESU UPTH chapter, and we're talking about the JOHESU strike. And you've just said that there was some adjustment for doctors, and you want adjustment for JOHESU as well. What sectors make up the JOHESU? Because I was talking to someone this morning and they said 4. But what are the sectors that make up JOHESU?
Earlier, before last month, precisely before April 24th or thereabouts, the sector that made up JOHESU were 5.
Okay.
We had Medical and Health Union Workers of Nigeria. We have NAM, being the National Association of Nurses and Midwives. We have NUAB. Then we have SATRA. Then we have National Association of Senior Staff of the University. So 5 health sector. But the nurses decided to pull out of JOHESU, of which I'm not in the capacity to actually brief the audience
Why
they withdrew
out
of this joint health. But right now we have 4 sectors under JOHESU.
So once again, you have the
medical and health.
mm-hmm.
We have the NUAB, being the Allied Health and Practitioners of Association. Then we now also have the Senior Staff Association, the University of Teaching Hospital of Senior Staff Association at various teaching hospitals. We also have NASU, made the non-academic senior staff of university in the hospitals.
Okay.
Yes.
So the question next is, the medical doctors are not part of the medical and health workers?
No.
Interesting there. Okay. So you're saying until this adjustment is made, the strike will remain indefinite?
Yes. For now, the strike is being tagged an indefinite strike.
Now, you said you want the current government, or that's the outgoing government or the incoming government, to work in it because it's already in the budget. But the outgoing government technically is done with its administration. Is this the right time to embark on that strike? Don't you think maybe JOHESU should have given the incoming government quite some time to be able to perfect its health policies?
Okay, thank you. It is the same outgoing government who actually responded to the cry of the medical doctors. They went on warning strike for 5 days, and they decided to sign an agreement that their comments adjustments will be looked into.
Okay.
So, if they had to look into their comments, I think we also think they should also look into our comments.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I see. But do you think you've given them enough time? 5-day warning strike, yours is indefinite. I mean, there's a slight difference.
This strike is a continuous issue.
Okay.
It didn't start just now, and today is our day 2 of our strike. Not so. Let me just correct that.
In our news, it said it started midnight today.
No, 24th of May.
That's when you started.
Midnight. Yes.
Okay.
So we started. Yesterday was day 1. Today is day 2.
So what hospitals are to comply with this JOHESU strike?
All federal teaching hospital nationwide and federal medical centers nationwide.
Interesting. So have you thought about how this will affect patients who are seeking medical help? Because, a lot of them will be affected if these 4 unions withdraw their services. You're giving essential services. So when you withdraw, have you thought about how this will affect the running of the various hospitals and medical centers, and what have you put in place to ensure it's not so serious on the patients?
Actually, because we are humans, and we also have families and friends that usually will come to the hospitals. But there's nothing we can actually do. The government itself, who have actually gone into agreement with the health sector, knows this sector are very essential sector. They didn't put that as a consideration, and after signing every agreement at every point in time, they will actually jeopardize whatever they have signed.
How sorry to cut you short, but how do they jeopardize it?
By not actually fulfilling what they have signed.
Okay.
Sometimes they will say, call off the strike and we'll implement. By the time the strike is being called, because we are all human, they will go back to square one by either setting another committee. In this case, everything adjustment, CONHES.
What's CONHES? You keep saying CONHES. What is it?
CONHES is the consolidated health salary structure for all the workers under JOHESU. CONHES is the salary structure for all the doctors.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and you're saying there are adjustment and there is funds given to a special salary scheme, and it will get to the health sector, but certain processes have to be passed. Yet again, don't you think maybe you're jumping the gun?
Well, what you heard on air, we also heard from Chris Ngige. That is a peculiar allowance, just like the minister mentioned. The health sector did not actually go into any agreements. We just heard on air that health sector, because they've announced and said they will give every other public servant 40% of peculiar allowance, and he now announced that for the health sectors 25% will be given to them. So we didn't negotiate for that.
All right. Okay, I'll pause you. Now. We go for a quick break. When we come back, we will open the phone lines, and if you've got any question now, will be the time to start jotting it down so we can ask our guest in the studio. Stay tuned to 92.3 Nigeria Info. 90.3 Nigeria Info. I'm Kalada, and I've got my guest in the studio. We've been talking about the JOHESU strike, and my guest is no other person but the JOHESU Chairperson UPTH chapter, in person of Glory Bapakaye James. And she's been giving us the reason why JOHESU has gone on this strike. And yeah, there are other reasons as to why they are on strike. There's a 6-point agenda. Once again, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so can we, apart from the consolidated salary adjustment, that's what you called it, apart from that, what are the reason is making JOHESU go on strike?
Thank you. Let me just get a rundown of the reason why JOHESU is actually going on strike.
Okay.
Just like what I said, adjustment of consolidated head salary structure for CONHENS as agreed in terms of settlements of 30th September 2017. It lingered since January 2nd, 2014. The payment of peculiar allowance to health workers under the aegis of JOHESU and Alien Health Workers, APA. Then immediately, the immediate and unconditional implementation of consolidated cadre for circular of pharmacists in all federal health institutes.
Okay.
The fourth point is payment of all withheld salary of members in Federal Medical Center Owerri, Jos University Teaching Hospital, and Lagos University Teaching Hospital. These 3 teaching hospitals, their salary was withheld long ago for agitating for their rights. So, in these labor movements, we usually say injury to one is injury to all.
Okay.
So on that reason, we are saying the federal government should pay these colleagues, our comrades in other teaching hospitals.
All right.
It was held since 2018. Their salaries was held since 2018. We want a speedy adjustment of retirement age from 60 years to 65. In other sectors where federal government approved the 65 years of retirement age, no clause was attached to the 65 years. But when it came to the JOHESU health sector, the government was trying to put clause on the set of persons who needs to retire for 65 years and some sets needs to retire for 60 years. But JOHESU is now saying, for the fact that the public service rule there has given 60 years before now as a retirement age, if you are actually updating the years to 65, neither increasing the years, we are saying let it be done holistically for everyone in the sector there.
All right.
Lastly, the exclusion of some health workers in the payment of new hazard allowance. Before now, JOHESU also agitated that hazard allowance should be increased, of which it was implemented. After the implementation, some sets of health workers was excluded out of it, and payment of COVID-19, which a lot of our comrades suffered for it, some died and all that. We said those who were excluded for it, we want their payment of COVID to be paid.
Okay.
Some institutes were also paid, some balances are still pending. So we are saying all of these should be paid to members of JOHESU.
All right. So you must have been listening to our conversation, you out there. And so I'm going to ask you what your reactions are to some of the things that we have talked about. Now, she said the consolidated salary adjustment is one major issue. Injury to one is injury to all. There are, places, the teaching hospital in Lagos, the teaching hospital
Lagos, Jos Teaching Hospital, and Federal Medical Centers Owerri.
Okay. And, she's saying that their salaries have been withheld. And these and some other issues, there's retirement age as well that has been updated. It has certain conditions and it has caveats that she's not satisfied with, or rather JOHESU is not satisfied with. So we're asking the question, how are you reacting? But before I go to the phone lines proper, I want to ask all of these things that you have listed. Yet again, is it how do I put it now? Is it okay to leave the patients? Because if you go through the pages of newspapers, a lot of people are complaining in different parts of the country about the fact that the hospitals are not working at full capacity. Is it okay to leave them there? I understand you want to get your welfare, you want to get all these things, but the question then is, when you put it on a scale, is it okay leaving the patients hanging?
Humanly speaking, we'll look at it that we are also human. It might not be okay to some persons, but for the fact that we are all in the health sector, we all go to the same markets, and you try to treat some persons fairly and treat some like trash. We are saying no. If you are not doing anything for everybody in the health sector, there's no big deal about it. But when we look at most of the hazard we go through and all that, like the last time we agitated for hazard, it was so shocking to the minister for him to even hear that health workers are still taking hazard of 5,000 naira since 80-something up to date. It was just adjusted of recent.
Is there some kind of bias between, or when you're looking at doctors and the rest of the health workers, is there any kind of divide, any kind of bias, any kind of favoritism?
If you ask me, I'll say yes, because where the sector is being controlled by a particular set of persons, if you go to Federal Ministry of Health, it is the doctors who are in charge. Every committee they will set, it is the doctor. You want to discuss issues that has to have that affect everybody in the health sector, you can't discuss my matter where I am not there seated. So what do you actually expect? It will be policy that will actually not favor everybody. It will be lopsided somehow.
All right. So now we're going to the phone lines. Take a couple of calls and we'll wrap this conversation. The numbers to call 0817 923 0002. That's the first one. The second one 0817 923 0003. The question I have is, how are you reacting to JOHESU strike? Last week we talked about NAD. This week it is the Joint Health Sector Union. Temple is calling from Rumumasi. Temple, all right, let's hear what you have to say. Temple, good evening to you.
Good evening, very distinguished Canada. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing great. Welcome on the show.
Permit me to salute your guest. Very important.
All right.
I think all these points agenda, like your guest rightly say, injury to one is injury to all. That injury to one that is injury to all, are we not part of it? Because you can remember of a recent, doctors embark on a strike. I guess nothing tangible was achieved out of that strike. And as a result of that,
you can't say
UPTH.
Wait.
There is no other way
Temple.
than strike they can use to resolve these issues all the time. That at the end of the day, they embark on a strike. Some persons that are on intensive care, some persons as a result of this carelessness of strike all the time will die, which we know this death cannot be recalled back again. Is there no way we can move from this ideology of handling issues outside strike? Because for me, I am very much for that. Nothing is coming out of strike. Strike is not even helping. At this point in time, strike is not helping. Please, are there no modalities and other channels we can use in resolving this issue that pertain to personal interest, most importantly the workers? Why those of them in the hospital are languishing, some of them are losing their life, brother? This is it not selfish? That is my point. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Temple from Rumumasi. Amadi calling from Chuba. Amadi, welcome. Let's talk.
Hello, Canada.
Amadi, welcome.
Hello, good evening, Canada.
Good evening, Amadi. I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Please, I have some question for the presenter. Actually, she's trying to present a good case. But my challenge is, why is it that every time that maybe the doctors go on strike and maybe have agreement with the government, then implementation, the agreement, that is when JOHESU, why is it that JOHESU cannot take their own initiative on their own? Because I have never seen anything with initiative from JOHESU. It's only when the doctors go on their own side and they achieve their aim that they will not go as if they are maybe against the doctors. Why not they stay and they take initiative and pursue a cause, win it without maybe that blaming the doctors or going to their for their own request? That is because maybe they want to form competition with the doctors. Because that is the only area that's not making sense.
All right,
they should be able to take their own initiative as we are fighting this cause. So this is what we want the government to do for us. Without waiting for the doctor to first of all go and fight. And after the doctors must have gone to fight in Abuja, they do everything. Now they will not come up and they have come for the doctor.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amadi. You want to react because we almost out of time. Let's hear your reaction there.
Let me react to the first question. The first speaker asks if there are no other modalities for us to actually resolve our issues. Just like what I said, strike in the labor movement is the last resort. If the person that actually called will also ask himself, have these people actually passed through other processes, other modalities? We have actually met the government, follow the normal due process. But it's obvious that the governments are always adamant in whatsoever ordinarily they do, generally. So that's why by the time they on their own fail to honor their own parts, because when you look at it now, they are now bridging the contracts there. So invariably the last resort for the JOHESU workers is to express their own grievances through the strike.
Well, can we quickly go to the second question because we are out of time? The
second question, the caller said if actually JOHESU don't have their own initiative, we do have our own initiative. If he wants to also ask himself, I'll throw that question to him. Will he also ordinarily think if actually it's JOHESU that is coming up with the same these issues first before the doctors we actually run to government and said if JOHESU is being attended to on these issues, these our own basically are in charge of most of the committees and affairs in Federal Ministry of Health. So they tend to be more favored than the JOHESU comrades in the health sector.
All right, that's too much that we can take. We have another commercial break, but thank you very much for coming in. I've been speaking with the chairperson UPTH chapter, JOHESU, and in person of Glory Bapakaye James. Thank you once again for coming in and explaining what's happening.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I am Kala Dakurubatabo, and I'll be with you again the 6 o'clock hour as I bring you the major news. Stay tuned.